But when race was brought up, he froze for a moment, fraction of a second. I wasn't sufficiently white to be the hero, said Bruce. Additionally, not sufficiently alien to be the antagonist. Two, made my own route because I lived in between. There was silence in the room. Bruce spoke lightly, not from bitterness but truth. He started teaching martial arts to others of all backgrounds, black, white, Asian, Latino, since the body doesn't know color, only rhythm, suffering, and development. Harold sat up more. Nothing was there that he without a point of contention. This was an actual event. I read once, because education's objective is not to fill a pail, but in order to start a fire. Bruce uttered those words. Martial arts accomplished. It form. I learned how to think from it, not what to reflect. That line wasn't merely practiced, it was heavy. Harold acknowledged it. John Dway, a remark that frequently cited in scholarly settings. Have you simply cite Dway? Harold inquired. Bruce gave a nod, informally. I appreciate his thoughts on experiential education. I train that way. Someone cannot be taught to feel a punch within a textbook. Harold was now practically grinning, but not in ridicule but incredulity. The studio crew looked on in disbelief as Bruce went on, discussing his time spent creating Jeet Kune Do, as a fashion, but as a philosophy. Take in what is beneficial, add what is, and throw away what is not. Uniquely your own, stated Bruce. You create, Harold. Martial arts sound like jazz, whispered. Bruce grinned. That's right. Organized liberty. That's genius. That word hovered in the air. Genius. Have you committed the quote to memory? Harold inquired. Half I'm kidding. Bruce said coolly. No, I penned it. The quiet was overwhelming. Something broke in that one moment within Harold Jennings. For the initial, he was unaware of the period in decades on broadcast. What should I say? Next. Harold looked in the direction of the control room. Even the creators appeared frozen. The red live light flicked on while everyone looked at Harold. Run out of moves at last. You wrote it, he said, this time in a quiet voice. Bruce nodded slowly. I wrote it after, observing a pupil struggle with equilibrium. He continued to attempt imitation. Others. I then said to him, take in what is useful, throw away what isn't, and include what makes you special. Harold's? The throat constricted. That quotation had been printed on a leaflet that a co-worker owned demonstrated to him 2 weeks prior. He had, at the time, they called it Eastern, and scoffed at it, for the spiritually perplexed, poetry. Now the irony struck him as he sat here. Harold stated cautiously that most before they hear they see your physique, your thoughts. I talk gently because of this. Bruce answered. To ensure that they're paying attention. One more moment of silence. This one wasn't awkward, but it did pass. It was merited. It was polite. The crowd, quiet all the way through, at last, agitated. A few light claps began initially near the rear, then extending gently. Not praise for amusement, but for reality. Harold gave his pen a tap. Once more, but this time without conceit, but in order to cope with the change taking place in front of him. He grabbed one last card in the stack that he had almost thrown away earlier. He'd throw a curveball, intended to toss in order to capture Bruce, unexpected. Harold read, you once said, that self-knowledge entails self-study, doing anything with someone else. What does that mean exactly? Bruce's gaze did not falter. It implies that you don't find out who you are by sitting alone by yourself. You find it in love, in conflict, in dialogue. We are made known by relationship. And Harold asked at this moment silently, what's coming to light? Bruce grinned. Enough. The reality is seldom noisy. Additionally, humility is frequently misinterpreted as a sign of weakness. That was it. The Harold's realization at last. Bruce Lee was brilliant and he had almost missaid it. Bruce wasn't concealing it, but due of Harold's lack of attention sufficient. The interview did not conclude in abrupt climax or dramatic musical cue, but with a bow. Bruce stood and bowed, a little toward Harold's direction and to the viewers. Harold, defying every convention of his usual egotistical outbursts, stood as nicely and returned the bow. It wasn't organized, however. It was genuine. The live red sign switched off. Suddenly, the moment was ended, but nobody was present. Was identical. Bruce silently. He grabbed his coat from the rear of the set as Melanie came over, but clutching her scrawled notebook. She stammered. Never, I mean. Thank you. There was more to that. Bruce grinned. You don't have to thank me. Harold stayed behind. The desk with the last cord still in it. It seemed like a kid now, useless. He divided it in half and put it on the table. Backstage. He captured Bruce as he was about to leave. "Mr. Lee," he said. His tone didn't retain the sharpness you are accustomed to. "May I say something?" Bruce pivoted. "I arrived here. Harold is prepared to dispel a myth today, admitted. However, you didn't construct one. You created a link between power and between east and west of the mind, between mind and man." Bruce provided no smugness, merely a gentle grin. "Next, I did my work. Harold, I misjudged you," added. "I'm accustomed to that," Bruce said, without resentment. "However, you don't now must." They exchanged handshakes. That evening, Harold Jennings took an action that he hadn't done more than 10 years ago. He revised his column 3 times. The first title had been The Muscle Man Conversations in Hollywood Philosophy. In a way. Rather, he transformed arrogant journalists' attempt to make Bruce look foolish. Lee doesn't realize he's brilliant. The article appeared in dozens of newspapers. The letters came pouring in. Teachers, academics, and martial students, artists, and those who had never even viewed the films of Bruce Lee, but were now purchasing his books and referencing his lines, as well as providing snippets of the interview. After several months, Bruce would pass without warning. Youthful, intelligent, and well ahead of his time. However, the echoes of that interview kept making waves through hearts, studios, and classrooms globally. And Harold saved the recording of the interview in his research. Every time someone questioned him about his most challenging interview, he'd keep quiet. He would just hit play. On his deathbed years later, "Harold, remind your grandchild of that name, Bruce Lee. In an hour he taught me more often than most males in a lifetime." And in that area, somewhere between motion and inaction, between Bruce's voice combining instinct and intelligence faintly echoed, "Be water, buddy. Has arrogance ever backfired on you? This badly? How may you have responded if you were Bruce? Thank you for viewing, and remember to come back for more Revelations tales." In a heated interview, a haughty journalist attempted to make Bruce Lee look bad, but everyone was taken aback by what transpired next. The man was unaware that he was up against a real live interviewed world leaders, as well as Nobel laureates. Harold Jennings sneered and adjusted his green tie. "Space. This kung fu kid isn't going to last 5 minutes." It was a cool afternoon in Los Angeles. 1971. It was blindingly hot outdoors, yet the lights in Studio 8B were even warmer. 53-year-old Harold Jennings leaning against the cosmetics counter, legs apart, arms folded in a military posture of assurance. He was a one interviewer on the network with a repute that came before him. And frightening blend of British accent, elegant sarcasm, eloquence, and the penetrating power to destroy even the most assured visitors. More than 30 years of television had made a permanent impression on his face. Smirk. And he thought that today would be no distinct. This would be easily handled by him. The character of Bruce Lee, simply another martial artist who had experienced renown and was wearing gaudy sneakers to ride it in film deals. At first, Harold didn't even desire to participate in the interview, but when the studio informed him of Bruce's fame was soaring, he grudgingly admitted. Melanie, the youthful assistant director, tried to steady her, barely in her 20s. Clipboard. She turned to look at Bruce Lee, who was several feet distant. He silently stretched his arms. He was 30 years old, dressed modestly in a gray suit and black shoes, calm, collected, and unconcerned. "You've heard he trained James and Steve McQueen," she muttered to the camera. "Coburn." "Joe," said the guy. "Yeah," said Joe. However, Harold believes that he is merely a stuntman with good public relations. Harold was 10 minutes before they went online, smirked and strolled over. "So," he said, he said, making a one-handed gesture. "The guy who can break boards with you is at your fingertips. Do you intend to, if I ask, smash the coffee table? Too deep?" Bruce grinned courteously. "I would rather talk to encounter." "Oh ho," Harold chuckled. "Witty, too. It will be enjoyable." As Harold left, Melanie glanced at "Don't mind him," Bruce murmured. "Hesemply enjoys prodding the bear." "I'm not a bear," Bruce said quietly. "I'm water." Melanie hesitated, not quite comprehension, but anything regarding the... She shuddered at the way Bruce said it. The live sign behind the curtain continued to flicker. About 40 people were seated in quiet. The host's voice and the music A voice reverberated. Greetings for the evening. Thoughts, when we look past the headlines. Harold Jennings is my name. This evening, an international action has joined me. Martial arts expert and celebrity Mr. Bruce Lee. The room was filled with applause. Bruce entered the carpet with a small bow to the throng and sat down. Harold's eyes glistened as he felt enchants. Mister, you've amazed spectators with their high kicks and battle scenes without shirts, but let's speak concerning material. Do you have anything to offer, more profound than the upcoming action film? Melanie lifted her clipboard and looked up. The assault has started. Bruce didn't flinch. If anything, he appeared calm. He repositioned his jacket's button and, without blinking, he replied, "It's learning, not fighting," he remarked. "The goal of fighting is to defeat someone otherwise. The goal of martial arts is to bet the boundaries of who you are." The viewers whispered, some nods, some interested looks. Harold gave a contemptuous laugh. Lyrical, I'll grant you that. However, when you're putting someone else before yourself, shoulder, are you considering boundaries or choreography? Bruce took a moment to reflect, as though giving Harold the respect of pause before correcting him. I'm considering time, flow, and balance. To express, not to look good, anything authentically through motion. Harold, you make it seem like a dance. Poked. It can be, said Bruce. However, additionally, it's about survival. And survival is what the most truthful thing in existence. A feint. The room began to feel tense. The audience leaned in. The personnel in charge of the Joe, Melanie, the scenery, and even the lighting tech, we're now observing more than working. Harold's next swing followed. You've already stated that it's like water is the objective. Sounds fantastic and $1 million. Cookie. But what is it really referring to? Bruce turned just enough to meet Harold's eyes without that for the first time. Courteous veil. According to him, water adapts. You pour it. It transforms into a cup. You pour, turning it into a teapot makes it the teapot. Water is little, yet powerful enough to degrade mountains. A stunned quiet came after. Harold blinked as well, anticipating such a strong metaphor. For someone that is rather philosophical. Renowned for piercing walls, Harold whispered, attempting to recover his footing. Bruce reclined, serene as never. This is due to the fact that you only see the punch. You've not witnessed the years of silent discipline in the background. Melanie scrawled that quote offstage onto her notebook, with 2 underlinings. Although she wasn't sure why yet, it seemed significant. In an attempt to heal, Harold shifted once more. All okay, fair enough. However, martial arts are violent, aren't they? You discuss discipline, but at the same time it's battle at the end of the day. Bruce's. The expression remained unchanged. The act of violence is abused authority. Martial arts instruction authority over your ego, your body, and your natural tendency to respond. Harold's mouth tightened. The discussion was not progressing, like he had intended. Bruce wasn't only serene, he was flipping the tables slowly. Without speaking louder, without perspiring, he was quietly breaking down Harold's whole approach. He knew he needed to push. Harold tried again. Harder. However, let's be, you're in Hollywood now. Honest. You're cashing checks. Isn't everything philosophy only, for the purpose of marketing the sound of violence honorable? Bruce smiled back. However, it was different at the time. Sharper. If I wouldn't be interested in marketing violence since quoting lousy, I would sell gloves. There was a chuckle from the viewers. Additionally, Harold for the first time appeared shaken. The scene transitioned into Harold, it's the second block now. Blushed a little from the heat of the determined it was time to switch to studio lights, change strategies. Let's set the bar higher. With a sarcastic zeal, Harold said, searching through a blue cue card stack. You have a reputation for saying Eastern proverbs, but I'm wondering whether you've ever struggled with Western philosophy. Without waiting for a response, he spoke. Let's discuss Dart. Have you heard the expression Quito erosum? Bruce gave a nod. Therefore, I believe yes, I am. Harold's eyebrow went up, startled. Fascinating. Additionally, Kant, I consider his statement that enlightenment is the rise of man from his self-imposed inexperience. Bruce calmly answered. Harold faltered for a little moment, concealing it, drinking some water, but Bruce went on before Harold could change course. However, information is insufficient on its own. Then Bruce said, what's its bad when intelligence turns into superiority? When someone is aware of just sufficient to think they've figured out the world. It was there, a soft, graceful pushback. No insult, no rage. However, everyone present, the crew, even the audience members and producers, felt even Harold, the strength in Bruce's words. Harold's pride, however, would not go away. Thus you claim to have read Kant and in between lessons of nunchaku? He said dismissively, laughing. Bruce laughed in a light manner. Additionally, I studied psychology at Washington University. I spent hours spent in libraries. I once carried a notebook and jot down ideas that came to me during instruction. That even surprised me now. Backstage, Melanie. She had prepared sheets. She had not seen a lot of Bruce's educational background. A silent twist, but one with a forceful landing. Harold attempted to get the rhythm back. How about chance? Physics? It is a language that most performers avoid this. Bruce's response appeared at once. According to Newton, and when an object moves, it continues to move. That's each blow I deliver. However, he added, there is an equal and opposite to every action, response. For this reason, I train not just my body, but my mind will react instead of another pause. React. Bruce then leaned a little forward, making eye contact with Harold. I don't keep my body and mind apart, as some people do. The practice of martial arts is the body science and philosophy is the mental language. I'm only translation between the two. The quiet that came next wasn't uncomfortable. It was respectful. Harold moved around in his chair. His inquiries had become tinder. Bruce's answers were igniting. The place was on fire. No hostility, just serene wisdom that is more incisive than any blade. Joe pushed behind the camera. Melanie, it's not just an interview. This teaches you how to deal with pressure. Despite violence, he included a heartbeat. Later, winking. Melanie gave a nod, writing down another quotation. Bruce said, today as a martial artist as well as a man who had experienced prejudice, failure, and rejection. My birthplace was, he said, San Francisco. Born and raised in Hong Kong. After that I returned to this nation. That wasn't entirely sure how to handle someone like me. Harold looked up.